Coming to you from deep within the swamps of the southeastern United States, this is a paranormal podcast unlike one you've ever experienced before. This is the Westgate Paranormal Podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Westgate Paranormal Podcast. Today is Thursday, September 27th, 2018, and I am Eric.
And I'm Amanda.
And tonight we're going to be doing sort of another chat with a twist.
So yeah, we are, but the reason why we're doing this is so that I get to talk about our original topic, because that disappeared into some strange land, so instead of me doing an episode on exorcism, I'm just going to do it we're going to do horror movies with a true story.
Sounds fun. Which, to explain, I guess, why we have this sort of lag, and for anyone who follows us on Instagram and Facebook we did an entire episode on exorcism. And it recorded fine and everything like that. And for whatever reason, it did not want to transfer onto my computer, and then somehow it literally just disappeared off the SD card. And when I put it back into our audio recorder stuff here, it showed that there was no file there at all. So I have no idea. Like, it's one of those things, I guess, when you're dealing in topics that are of the paranormal.
Sometimes paranormal shit happens to it.
It's just so needless to say, we did not do our exorcism episode.
We did
after recording it.
We did, but we're not going to try it again. We're going to actually just cover some fun stuff. So I guess we can start with, let me see. Let me go down the list and see what's the most well-known. So, all right, we can start with, did you know that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on a real person?
I had heard back and forth both ways, but then I've heard a lot of different stories with it, so...
It is. It's real, and it's Ed Gein. Ed Gein has, like, so many horror movies that took from his life.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Like, I mean, Psycho was Ed Gein, as well as, and I've never seen it, but a movie from 1974 called Deranged. That is also an Ed Gein spinoff.
He is such an interesting character in himself, because he literally, like, admitted to, like, killing the woman in the basement and stuff like that, or having her in the basement as a hostage when somebody asked, and they just totally didn't even believe him, because they thought of him as this harmless, sort of simple man.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel as though you kind of have to go full crazy for that, because, I mean, he had fucking lampshades made from human skin and stuff.
Yes.
So you kind of have to be like, yeah, I did it. Because, I mean, nobody else decorated like that back then.
What was it? A movie that they did about him, like a sort of biographical movie. One of the scenes that I thought was the coolest was, as they were going into his house, he had like a tableside lamp made out of a human spine or something like that. I thought that was cool. I've always wanted a chandelier of human skulls.
I mean, it could be fake. I'd be all right with that. Yeah, I don't need that. I don't need that in here.
The fake would last a lot longer.
It definitely would. So I know we'll talk about one of your favorite ones, which is Amityville, which Amityville is it is based-ish. So that house is real. Ronnie DeFeo killed his whole entire family in that house. But as far as it being haunted, I mean, you know a little bit more about this than I do.
it goes back. It's one of those things that goes back and forth so many times. So it really gained fame with the Warrens
Right.
going there back when after everything happened and the new family had moved in. The Lutzes were the family that came after the DeFeo family that the actual murders took place in. So the Warrens went there, and then the book was written about it and everything, and then it became a motion picture.
Right.
A fairly dramatized motion picture.
Right. Now,
But-
the Warrens went to the Lutzes. Because the DeFeos were dead and gone.
yes.
Okay, I just want to make
that's
sure.
what I'm saying.
Okay,
After the Lutzes moved in, the Warrens went there to investigate because that was one of their groundbreaking, really well-known sort of visits, investigations.
Right.
And so the thing about it is you have the story from the Lutzes and how it happened. And then you have the story from the Lutzes children and how it didn't really happen. And then you have the murderer himself, Ronnie DeFeo, saying it was all totally made up, that it was all his sister's idea. And he's gone back and forth in a lot of different ways.
There's a
over the years.
documentary with him that we've watched.
Yeah.
If y'all want to know what real crazy looks like,
Yes.
that's what real crazy looks like. If you
Because
guys can find it, his name's Ronnie DeFeo. It's the Amityville. I don't know
Yeah.
what the documentary is, but it's all him, and he is.
Yeah, it's an interview with him in prison. And that's the thing, because he has told so many different stories,
Right.
that there is obviously something going on in his head. So you kind of have to question kind of back and forth, just was it pure, insanity on his part, or was he influenced and maybe he's still being influenced and that's why his story is never the same? Because the last one that I saw, he really, he pointed the finger at his sister and said it was all his sister's idea.
Right.
And he didn't even want to go along with it, but he had to take over after she started it because he knew that he had to protect her. So it's just very bizarre.
He's bananas.
Because there's a history to the land from several different stories about it, ranging anywhere from just that, it was originally, tribal land for the local Native Americans who were there.
Which absolutely makes sense.
Right. And then it goes, a little each step further depending on who it is, with the Warrens full on saying, it was demonic forces that were in there and stuff like that. That was what was affecting everything.
Yeah.
Because that was DeFeo's initial defense, was basically he was being told to do this.
Right.
Like from a,
An outside
paranormal, supernatural realm. Because his father apparently had lots of ties to the mob.
Right.
And that was one of the speculations that originally, people were thinking it could be a mob hit and he's taking the blame, and just a number of different things. Or it could even have been part of something involving the mob with DeFeo himself. But the whole deal of Jody, the glowing red-eyed pig that the Lutz's daughter talked to me, that always stuck in my head, because I used to have a recurring dream, and it could very well have been influenced by that in some way.
Yeah.
But I used to have a recurring dream of going to this old cemetery at night, out in the middle of the country and near a town I used to live in when I was a kid. And it was very dark, but in my dream, the cemetery was completely surrounded by a giant wrought iron fence, the kind with the little points on the top, like as at the Talamato Cemetery and stuff. And it was all foggy and hazy in there. And then when I got into the cemetery, for whatever reason, I was trying to get into the cemetery, I started hearing all these grunting sounds, and I couldn't see anything. But then all of a sudden I started seeing little red eyes in the fog, and the grunting sounds were these really large, wild black pigs with glowing red eyes. And the reason I didn't see them originally was because they were digging up graves and eating the remains out of the graves, and it was them sort of sticking their head out of their root hole going down to the grave.
Root hole. Huh.
So, yes. So the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, okay. So that actually has a good connection, because we can cover 3 movies. One was absolutely terrible. The other 2 were pretty good. So it's Conjuring, Conjuring 2, and then fucking Annabelle.
Yes.
So all of those, why I say we can cover all of those in one fell swoop is because they're all about the Warrens, who we just discussed about Amityville
Right.
with. So Annabelle is where it started. Was that it? Where they really, really got notoriety was with Annabelle.
I do believe, yeah.
So Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann doll. I mean, it's nothing like that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah,
it
it
looked
is.
Like,
It's just an old Raggedy Ann
yeah,
doll.
it looked like the same one that I had. Which obviously they turned it into a porcelain doll, which I fucking hate. Because I hate porcelain dolls with a passion. So
For the movie, you're saying that's what they turned it into.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But if you guys actually look it up, if you haven't seen the actual Annabelle, it actually is a Raggedy Ann doll. And John Zaffis owns it now. Isn't that who? Last I heard he had acquired it.
He may have acquired it because he's the nephew of Warren.
Oh, okay.
So that's how he got into his collection business.
Huh.
Because he's their nephew.
So that's how the Warrens are all included in all of this, because The Conjuring, and I know definitely the Conjuring is about them.
Right.
And their
Yes.
first case,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't even their first case, because
It was
that's
just
how
one
they
of their,
found
their
them.
early cases.
It's from
yeah.
Annabelle. So,
Right.
Anyway, The Conjuring kind of covers them, and I guess when their notoriety really started to come into being.
I guess so. It was because honestly, Annabelle was one of those sort of urban legend things for me, hearing about when I was a kid.
Right.
Not so much Annabelle, but just the idea of a haunted doll. But what stuck out to me always was the Amityville house. So I'm not really sure which,
Yeah.
chronologically what really did it.
But yeah, the Conjuring 2, they actually go over to England, where Nick and Katrina from
Paranormal Lockdown.
yeah, they actually went over there and spent 3 days in that place, and that is one place I can't. I don't. Just looking at it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. Excuse me. There's a couple places like that in England that kind of just
It's true.
something about it. I don't know. But yeah, it was and then who was the last? I think it was Zach. He did an episode where he actually touched the doll. He wasn't. It was when whoever owned it at the time brought it in a case.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And even he was saying, he felt like he was not doing it of his own volition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you can tell when you're watching that episode that he's told so many thousands of times to not touch it for any reason.
Contact.
And it's almost like he gets up close to it to where he wants to, but then something just makes him.
Yeah, because he sits there saying he wants to touch the doll, and the guy's like, "No, you can't do that. You can't do that." And he's fighting it. Then he gets up to walk away from the chair, and as he does, he just
Grazes his hand.
completely, unconsciously, just his hand reaches out, taps, So yeah. So, are we tying in the Warrens with these cases? And
Yeah, I mean it kind of covers a little bit of the possession stuff.
yeah,
because they're big on
items.
yeah,
Right.
and I guess that's where John Zaffis gets his.
Yeah,
he was probably raced around it, maybe.
yeah, that was sort of the thing. Because I've never personally talked to him. I've heard lots of interviews, podcasts with him and stuff, and he actually has several sets of buildings on his property. And then he has, originally, from what I understand, kind of started as his museum in the basement. But he has several different sheds, or barns, I should say. And he goes through a quarantine process as he brings things in that have attachments to him. They first go to sort of the decontamination barn, where he puts it in there and, it's monitored, and he actually does rituals to bind and cleanse whatever's on it,
Oh,
one way or the
wow.
other and stuff. So they show it, with the Haunted Collector series that is about him.
So that actually answers the question I was going to ask. Like, could one jump from one to the other if it wanted to? Like,
Yeah.
one it knew was getting ready to go back in the house or something, or...
That
But
was the thing with him. Like, yeah, it was binding it to whatever it is
Okay.
or something, depending on the article and his understanding what's attached to it and all that, I guess, too. Because if you see, like, on the Haunted Collector, he has them under those glass dome display things with a ring of salt around it inside the display. So
Smart man.
yeah.
Because all you want to do is just bring shit in the house and have it all over the fucking house. Just out.
Well,
No. Nope.
some people like to collect.
Okay, yeah, he collects it correctly. You just can't bring stuff in all willy-nilly.
It will be contained within our house.
No. No.
That's actually an interesting idea, having a safe house, or a safe room in your house.
To get away from all the haunted shit you bring in?
No, that you would put it in the safe room to keep it sort of like entombed, so to speak. You know what I mean? A vault of horror. Literally.
But I mean, once you open the door, doesn't that just kind of negate it?
Well, you could, have red brick dust across the entrance or salt inside surrounding everything. And I mean, I guess
We couldn't have it in this house because one of the dogs would go and...
they'd lick up all the salt.
Yeah. That wouldn't work.
Yep. Or they'd trap themselves in there.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So, what's another horror movie that you know of that actually has like a true backstory to it? And I'll see if it's on my list.
Friday the 13th?
No.
Freddy Krueger?
Actually, Freddy Krueger is.
Isn't that sort of an Ed Gein nod too, or was that?
No, it's actually apparently I guess it was in England. I did not write this one down.
Uh-huh.
But in England there was, I guess, a janitor that blew up in a
boiler room
accident, and kids had bad dreams from it. I don't know, something like that. But then there's another theory that it's based on, there was a sleep study done of a couple of teens, and they ended up dying in their sleep, like randomly.
Which is one of obviously the big things about Freddy. If
Right.
you die in your sleep, you die in real life.
Right. So I don't know. There's two different. I'm sure that there's way more.
Yeah.
Than that, but the janitor in England, his name was actually Frederick Krueger.
Interesting.
So that's why they got. I don't know. It could be a culmination of a bunch of different true stories.
Because there's a lot of like that urban legend thing with the exploding boilers and people getting killed.
Right.
Yeah. So he lived down behind the furnace?
Yeah, sure.
And he made the young kids nervous?
Yep. But, okay, so try for another one.
It's not fair. You've got a list. I don't have... I've only got my head.
But that's what... I know. We're going to prove how smart you are.
How smart I are.
How smart are you?
Poltergeist.
So I don't have that one on my list, but I'm sure that is an over-dramatized, probably true story.
But yeah,
Well,
touched
actually,
on so many. There was, I think it was in England too, right?
Well, the first one is not based on a true story. I want to say it's actually Poltergeist 2 that is based on
Poltergeist 2?
a true story. I don't know how.
I don't know. I remember seeing a documentary of a place or a house in England that I don't remember even what it was now that it was on. This was years ago that I saw it. And it was about poltergeists.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing was like one of the most recorded incidences of poltergeist activity. It's like the book.
I think I remember watching that one.
Yeah.
Too.
Because it was in some like older building, older town in England and
Yeah.
stuff. And most of the narration of the guy seemed like he was standing in the backyard a lot when he was talking about the building.
I bet it, that's for another day.
Yeah, because it was like, I want to say it was a young boy and he lived with his two older sisters. And he used to like literally like propel himself across the room and stuff like that. Things would move in the house. They did a whole documentary about that family specifically from that house.
Well, that's
And that
what
was-
that I think you're actually talking about Exorcist, aren't you?
No, The Exorcist wasn't the boy from The Exorcist wasn't documented like this.
Oh, okay.
This was in England.
Hmm.
I do from what I remember. Like I said, you know how it is when I watch things, it all becomes one giant melodrama in my head.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, and I want to say it was like from the 1940s or 50s or something like that. But anyway.
Which, brings up The Exorcist. The Exorcist is based on a true story of a boy named Roland Doe back in 1949, where they call him Roland Doe because I want to say the family didn't want
his real name,
their real names being used so that they could get away from it, because they actually put him in a mental institution.
Yeah. And that was the thing with the priest too. Like, didn't the priest for years like have an agreement with the family not to talk to people about it or something like that?
I don't know.
That seems like it goes back to the story with Father Mort, which we talked about in our podcast that got eaten. So
actually, I think that you might be referring to the exorcism of Emily Rose, because that was like a big deal, and those priests got in deep shit.
Could be.
Because the exorcism of Emily Rose, if you guys haven't seen it, it's the sister from Dexter. She's the main character in that one, I believe. But this person, the person it's based off of, is Anneliese Michel. She was a German woman, and the whole family thought that she was possessed, but doctors thought that, it was probably a mental condition.
Yeah.
But there were two priests that came in and did a year-long's worth of exorcism, and she ended up dying.
Yeah.
From it. But when they went in and did the autopsy on her, she ended up dying from it was neglect, starvation, and severe dehydration.
Right.
Like, they hadn't fed her anything for a very, very long time. Like, you can see pictures of her on the internet, and it's just horrifying.
It was like she just emaciated. Like, she was literally, whether they were, I don't remember the whole thing, if they were trying to and she just wouldn't or whatever, but it was very, basically she just starved to death.
Right. And anytime you see clips of exorcisms in movies and things like that, that's actually one of the exorcisms that
Was taken
get
from
thrown into those movies a lot of times, which they show it in The Rite.
Yeah.
When he's in school, one of the exorcisms is actually of Anneliese Michel from Exorcism of Emily Rose. So they all kind of tie in together. They all kind of tip their hats at each other, I guess, But The Rite was actually what we were going to cover in our last episode that didn't make it. So let's see if we can make it happen now.
Let's hope.
But The Rite is an amazing movie if you guys haven't seen it. It's with Anthony Hopkins. I believe it's on Netflix right now. But it's based on Father Thomas, I believe, and Father Amort, who is played by Anthony Hopkins. But it's a true story.
Yes.
And it goes into how Father Thomas, ended up becoming an exorcist, and the training he went through with Father Amort. And if you guys are interested in reading a really good book, it's actually called The Right. I had all the notes. I'm scared to even like go back on any
Yeah.
of this stuff.
It's what the movie was based around. The movie's a little portrayed through the eyes, basically, of Father Tom and Father Amort.
Yeah, it's The Right Making of the Modern Day Exorcist by Matt Baglio. That book is awesome.
Yes, it is.
There's a documentary out about Father Amort on Netflix called The Devil and Father Amort that's really good. It's a documentary, so it's
Yes.
not,
If you come across The Devil and Miss Jones, you've reached the wrong movie.
Yes. But it's not, an overly exciting documentary, but it's a really cool documentary, and it's actually done by the director of The Exorcist.
Yes.
Because Father Amort's favorite movie was The Exorcist, which I thought was really cool, and he said it was because it brought light and, over dramatized, it did bring forth a lot of what does happen in exorcisms.
Yep.
So,
from the very subtle all the way to like what you would think is just completely made up. Father Amort was the world-renowned exorcist for the Vatican.
right.
He's basically, when we think of the old priest in the movie The Exorcist, that's sort of another kind of hat tip to Father Amort himself, because
Yes.
he spent his whole priestly career pretty much being an exorcist on a daily basis.
And he was doing exorcisms until he ended up getting sick and being hospitalized. So, and that's where he ended up dying.
Right.
But
And that was just a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, I want to say 2006.
Yeah.
I think I'm right.
Okay.
But but yeah, I think that every exorcism movie that comes along has some kind of nod to him, and they should.
Yes. Yeah, they really should, because he set the ground for it. And that's another thing, bringing up John Zaffis again. I heard a podcast with him, and he was talking about the first time he sat at an actual exorcism. And the priest was doing the exorcism on this person, and John was like, this guy's not really doing much of anything. He's just sort of sitting there. But then he saw the guys, or the person getting the exorcism, their eyes basically went cloudy, like kind of just went white or went gray. And so that freaked him out a lot. And he asked the priest, and he's like, well, why isn't it like it's portrayed in the movies sometimes, where they're like, levitating and throwing themselves against the ceiling? And the priest is like, they don't need to show that kind of power. That's all that is just a power play, and they don't need to show that to people. And so he asked the priest about the eyes, and the priest just laughed at him. He's like, oh, you've never seen that before? He's like, yeah. He's like, that's their subtle way that, instead of throwing themselves across the room, they contort themselves in some fashion, and it's usually their eyes will turn gray or turn white.
See, and that's so creepy to me.
Because it's preternatural. It's like not something we're capable of doing.
Why I liken it to like a shark. You know how they have that other eyelid that comes back.
Membrane.
Yeah. So creepy. That's why I'm pissed that they canceled The Exorcist on Fox.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Because I loved how they did the eyes in that.
With the double pupil. That, for some reason, really freaked me out. I don't know why.
I love it.
It's eyes thing in general. Even watching stuff happen with people's eyes freaked me out, so...
Yeah. I don't know. Eyes and teeth freak me out for some reason. So let's see, another one that I love, and I didn't actually, until I looked up, horror movies that have true stories behind it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this had a true story, which was The Strangers. Yeah. And it's actually based on the Manson family. Which is crazy. I never knew that. I love that. I wasn't so hot on the second one. I thought the second one was it was okay. It would have been fine as a standalone, but not as a sequel to the original.
I agree.
Because
The
I
original was
remember,
the best.
man, I was single when that came out and living by myself. And I went and saw it by myself and came home. And I want to say for 6 months afterwards, I would get up 2 to 3 times a night just to make sure that every door in my house was locked, including my bedroom.
Yeah.
Like, that movie scared the shit out of me.
It is a crazy concept altogether. Like, suddenly you're hostage in your own home and tortured and murdered and stuff, you know?
I think that was probably, like, one of the first horror movies that truly scared me, and it was because it was so human.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing fancy to it. Yeah, you were just like, holy shit, like, someone could do this at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I think that is why that movie scares the shit out of me. And I think that's probably why I kind of enjoy The Purge, too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like those movies. Yeah. But I do have to say that they definitely scare the shit out of me.
It's supposed to be your safe zone, your house.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think a lot of it, that's how it is with people with hauntings too, because that's supposed to be a place that they're safe in and feel comfortable in. And that's sort of like an invasion in itself, and why it can get so crazy for people, especially if it has ill intent.
So, I might be a little crazy, but I get little signs and little signals from what I like to call spirit. And I have a strict rule that I had to place the other day, speaking of safety and sanity and things like that. So I was in the bathroom peeing, and I started getting little knocks and bangs and things like that, and I had to, like, put my foot down. I was just like, we're going to not do this in here. Like, this is my safe zone. I don't talk to you in the bathroom, and you don't talk to me in the bathroom. Yes. So, you know, even if our house is haunted and I feel like I'm talking to something in the house, it can't talk to me while I'm in the bathroom. Yeah. That is a rule.
That's a good rule to have.
I think so. Like, I should be allowed to do whatever I want in my bathroom and not be judged.
Yep.
Just, you know.
Which is why I don't like public bathrooms, too. Especially if somebody wants to acknowledge that you're in there.
Yeah, no. So. I hate when people go into the bathrooms on their phone.
Yes.
That makes me want to barf so bad. Yes. I really want to fart really loud when people do that.
So, The Strangers and the Manson family.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I ever would have really even thought of that. I mean, I see how they could parallel it off of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I never would have put it in my head. Like,
yeah.
Out of the blue, that's what it's based on.
Yeah. Let me see. There's... Oh, one of my favorite movies, which I feel like I just keep saying that because I love horror movies so much. But it's actually, it really is one of my favorite horror movies. It is based on The Donner Party, which is Ravenous.
Yes.
And for anybody who has not seen this movie, you really should. It's, what is his name? He plays Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time.
I don't know. I don't know people's names.
Damn it. Now I can't remember. I always know what his name is. Anyway, he's the bad guy. That's all I'm going to say about it. David Arquette's in it. There's quite a lot of famous people in the movie, but it's a very B film. But I love it. It's beautiful, and all of the music is banjo music in it.
Yeah.
And to me, it just couldn't get any better.
It's a cult classic, in my opinion.
I agree. And I'm amazed that not a lot of people have seen it. Which, that really, really surprises me, because I saw it in the movie theater. Like, the minute that thing came out, I was going to see it. But...
it's definitely a movie worth checking out. I mean, it's a different sort of twist on things. and it's, set in the past and all that, but it's really, really well done.
It's just so good. Like, if you haven't seen it, really, please find it. Find somebody you know that has it.
Yes.
And watch it, because it's amazing. Let me see. I guess we all know that Silence of the Lambs is real.
Yes.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I know. I don't know that everybody knows.
Well, Buffalo Bill was based on a guy named Gary Heidnick. Was his name? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So he actually used to lure women
Skin
back.
people,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, he had a fucking dungeon.
Yeah.
And, like, would either starve them or overfeed them and make them gain weight and then lose weight really suddenly so that he had...
Add that extra skin.
Yeah. Yeah, dude made clothes out of... I don't understand. Well, I don't know. Like, because I like to make things out of animal bones, but...
Yeah.
So I guess I understand. But I've never hurt anything in order to get those things. That's my big deal. I don't know. But yeah, so Silence of the Lambs was real. One of the ones that we covered in the exorcism possession thing was Serpent in the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah. Serpent in the Rainbow.
And that one's an older one. That one's definitely a cult classic.
Yes.
But if you haven't seen it, it's unbelievably good. Bill Pullman is in it, and he's a scientist over there studying zombies.
Yeah, I think that's
like that's the whole intent behind it. And there was actually a scientist that went to Haiti and did this study, and that's who the movie and the book is based on.
Yeah, because our perception, our cultural ideas of zombies actually come from a historic root or a historic basis, and it's not really, brain-eating undead sort of creatures. It was an actual toxin that was given to someone, usually in the form of a powder blown into their face so it absorbed through their eyes.
Right.
So that they could be used basically as manual labor later on. People would think they were dead and they would bury them, and then other people would go back and dig them up and keep them drugged to work in their fields and stuff.
Which is kind of the definitely more arts and crafts way of doing what Jeffrey Dahmer did. That's kind of what he was doing too, except he literally lobotomized the people that he kept and tried to see how long that they would last as his, sex slaves?
Sex slaves, yeah. Because he would literally drill into their skull with a power drill.
Right. So... Oh, I can't believe I haven't brought this one up, because this is, and I knew it was a true story. I knew all about it before I ever even knew that there was a movie.
Uh-huh.
And that is Wolf Creek.
Oh, yes, Wolf Creek.
If you haven't seen it, watch 1 and 2, and the TV series was so good.
Yes.
IFC did the TV series, and it is just...
Yeah.
fucking insane. I'm hoping that they have a second season.
It's messed up because it's literally somebody out in the outback
It was two guys.
Yeah, did all these murders over all this long
they
period
weren't
of time.
caught for years. I want to say it wasn't until recently.
And it was because somebody got away, wasn't it? Wasn't that how he ended up getting caught?
Well, I know that that's in the movie, but he still never...
Still never caught in real life?
No, he was caught. They were caught in real life. Yeah, you know what? It may be. Or it may be that somebody found one of the IDs or something.
Yeah, it was something just like, you should have... You think that after all these years of doing this, they would have covered themselves better.
Right.
Because I want to say it was like somebody got away or something, or was approached or something like that.
Yeah, I believe so. I think you're right.
I don't know.
But yeah, that one is... I think knowing about it before, you kind of get a little bit of an idea, because it was just so, it was just missing people.
Yeah.
And then when they figured out it was actually two people kidnapping people, And they weren't just like kidnapping and killing them.
Yeah.
Like
it was a sport to them.
Yeah, and they slaughtered them like animals.
Yeah.
Basically, while they were still alive. So that's definitely Wolf Creek is friggin' amazing.
It is very, very far down that rabbit hole. It's like what these people did. And it was just a big game to them, basically.
Oh yeah. But it definitely is one. If you're looking for something that will genuinely never want to make you go camping a day in your life in the outback,
yes,
that one will do it.
Because not only do you have to contend with basically everything that walks out there is capable of killing you as an animal, you've got things like that.
Right. And that's the thing. Like I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, I want to go to Australia because everybody wants to go to Australia.
Yeah.
And then like the older I get and the more things that I see can kill me over there, like, I mean, just the animals alone, you know, aquatic and otherwise, I think I'll pass. It's beautiful. It looks amazing. I would love to go, but I'm literally scared that everything there will attack me at one time.
So then we'll go to New Zealand instead.
No. No. I'm okay. They're all beautiful. But
so, and that is a sort of another little segue into like the idea of what people ask with why are some spirits good and some spirits bad. You take somebody like these people that we're just talking about with Wolf Creek.
yeah.
You know, like somebody who's lived a life of nothing but like seeing how much pain they can inflict on others for their own pleasure. What do you think they're going to be like when they're dead? You know, you think they're going to be nice ghosts? So
No, but I also think about the people that they kill in those areas too.
Yes. Oh,
you know, like everything that they went through.
Just all that emotion and pain and energy spent during that time.
That's why, like, I don't. I'm one of those people who's like fascinated by serial killers. I think that I don't know how to word this without sounding like a total creep, but like I think that they're very friggin' interesting.
It is. I mean, because it's something that the average person walking by somebody like that would have no clue. I mean, you know, look at Ted Bundy. He was charming. He was well educated. You know,
handsome,
smiling in his courtroom hearings and laughing. Like, you know, you would not think that he's not just some typical guy.
So I always wonder, and especially with people like Ramirez, like, are some? Do you think some of them actually might be possessed? Like, not the ones that actually cause like the most sadistic things? Like, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of science that goes, you know, back looking at, you know, the mind of serial killers, and I know that some parts light up and some parts don't.
Yeah.
But like, if there has there ever been, do you think there's ever been one with like a normal functioning brain, but they still did what they did? Like, because I feel like that would be a sign of possession.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree, because it's like you if you're looking at it from like abnormal psychology, saying, you know, some people are predisposed to certain things, you know, the whole nature versus nurture.
Right.
But every serial killer, even though demographics and stuff may be similar between some of them, or education or whatever, they're still all very unique. I mean, look at like the most well-known serial killers, and they all have a very unique personality.
Whenever I think possession, I think Ramirez.
Yes.
Like the way that he walked, talked, looked.
Yeah.
Like what he did, everything about him, like in my head screams like possession.
Yeah.
And he was when he Satan worship, wasn't he
was
into all of that?
Yeah. He had the pentagram on his hand and stuff.
So, I mean, I feel like either he invoked maybe something, or he was hoping to go somewhere whenever he was done, but I don't know. There's just something about him that just, it's just so he was so unnatural.
Yeah, he really was. I think a close second, in a strange sort of way, could have been the Son of Sam killer also.
Don't you talk about my Berkowitz like that.
Well, because if you look at him, he's got that sort of...
No, he does not.
Okay.
No,
and
I
dogs
don't.
were telling him to do things.
I don't care. The dogs tell us to do stuff all the time around here. Like when to eat, everything.
That's true. Usually it's not to the detriment of as many people, though, except our own sanity.
We don't know that yet. Their full plan is not unraveled. But no, I mean, I don't see, like, David Berkowitz, when I see pictures of him, I see, like, your normal dude next door.
Yeah.
I really don't. Like, where Ramirez I probably would have walked across the street to get away from him. And I don't do that for anybody, but there's something about him that I feel was just completely and absolutely unnatural.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. He had, like, that sort of darkness all around him.
Yeah.
Like, he emanated darkness, if that's even a thing.
Like, I can't think of, like, any other serial killer. I'm like, there was obviously something off inside their brain. Like, no matter how cruel or how horrible what they did to people was,
right.
I still don't look at them like I do Ramirez, where Ramirez genuinely was not, he was not human, in my opinion.
I could totally see that. Yeah.
But that's where, like, that's why I like serial killers and why I'm interested in, like, things like possession and exorcisms, because, like, I can see how, like, a house or a ground or things would become possessed from that point forward.
Right.
Because of acts that happened there. Like, Spawn Ranch is probably haunted as fuck.
Yeah. Well, look at Gacy's. I mean, like, how many bodies did he have buried under, his house?
Wasn't it like 30?
27, I think.
It was
or
up
33,
there.
Something in that range.
Yeah. And then Ed Gein.
Yeah.
Like, if that house is even there anymore, I don't even know if it is. But, I mean, just what happened there is enough.
Yep.
The Tate LaBianca, like, not just, Spawn Ranch, but the house. And
itself,
they've had so many investigations at that house. And it seems like there is always some sort of evidence that's found every time by multiple different people.
Right. Which is interesting. It comes back all the way to the beginning again with the Amityville house. That people who've lived there since then say nothing happens. So there we go, kind of back and forth, because it was all that stuff that was going on with the DeFeos, and then following them with the Lutzes, and then other people through the years. Either they're just covering it up, basically not wanting to be part of the spotlight because they've got it all fenced off with private property signs, on the property, because it's such a famous house, that others have said there's no activity.
Right.
So it's weird.
So that's a question I have for you. Do you feel as though, like, places that are haunted, because I know just from watching stuff and having gone in a few places, like, do you think that there's an ebb and flow? Like, do you think that there are periods of time where it could have, like, absolutely no activity just because, and then suddenly it spikes up again?
I think it could very well be, yeah. And it could also be the fact that the Lutzes were the first family to move in after the murders took place with the DeFeos.
Right.
So it was still the energy, just even maybe from the murders, could have sort of opened something during that time frame.
So with that being said, do you think over time, like, it just winds down? Because I feel like they're ups and downs so much in some hauntings. Like, you can go in, you can spend 3 nights in one place and only one night for maybe a couple hours you get something, but yet you go back 3 years later and it's like constant.
Yeah. Or a family's living there and having stuff happen to them, to an extreme, and somebody else comes in and there's nothing.
Right.
Like when they're trying to document it. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that even in places that we've gone in, on a nightly basis. Yeah. You can go in from hour to hour and there may be absolutely nothing, the group that was there before you, and then when you walk in, it's crazy. Or vice versa, You go in and these other people are saying, well, we just had this happen, and you walk in there and there's nothing going on at all. So, yeah, it makes sense.
So maybe, I mean...
I don't know what triggers it, honestly.
See,
but...
that's the thing. Like, what would bring it on at certain times? Because, I mean, like, with the Amityville house, it has been owned by a lot of different people. And that's the thing. I'm like, well, if nothing's happening, why does it change hands so often?
Yeah. And it was just recently sold again, not too very long ago. But
I don't understand, like, either people are, like, lying to themselves, or... Because, I mean, the house seems beautiful.
Yeah.
And
really is.
To me, I just don't understand why it would go on the market so often.
Right.
If something wasn't happening there.
And
Because it can't just be people going under every
Yeah.
time they buy that house. That's just not... It doesn't seem possible.
Exactly. And that was a thing, too, even with the murders with Ryan DeFeo when he was killing his family. This was like, 3:15 in the morning, November 13th, 1974, 3:15 in the morning. And he was firing shotguns in the middle of the night, and none of the neighbors knew anything about it.
It's because there was a lightning
Yeah,
and
that was
thunder.
a theory. But then, like, in his interview, he was saying it wasn't really even raining until after I left, because he went and he ditched one of the guns down in a gutter, like, on the way to a bar or something like that. He just, threw it out into the street down into a rain gutter. And he was saying, well, yeah, it rained, but it wasn't raining when all this was happening. It started afterwards.
I don't understand how neighbors couldn't hear that.
Exactly, because if you look at the Amityville house, it is basically like what we consider a subdivision. It is house next to house.
Right.
You can look out your window and into your neighbor's window. They're like, 20 feet, 30 feet apart, something like that.
Right.
So, I don't know.
That's why I don't understand. Like,
that was always a question I had about that whole thing, as if he's...
But he's crazy. That's the thing. If it had been lightning, he probably didn't know it. Or, like, I don't know.
That's true. That's very true.
But he's crazy. Like, seriously, if you guys get a chance to watch the documentary, he is Looney Tunes.
He is nuts.
And he's one that I look at, and I'm, like, going back to Ramirez, like, I don't think that he was possessed. I just think he's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he did too many drugs... Or he drank too much and had brain damage.
Yeah, he did do a lot of drugs at that time. He was on...
He was running coke at one point. But, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think dude had brain rot. Like, I don't think that he was possessed. I think he was just crazy.
Yeah. Well, what about the idea of, because you're putting yourself in that situation, that you're opening a doorway for things to take control, and it could have had an influence? Does that make sense? I'm not debating. I'm just saying maybe that's why he thought that was happening at the time, because for one, either psychologically speaking, he was facing his own demons and letting them take control, or two, it was really something interacting with him because he was so mentally open at the time from being on drugs.
See, I have a strict policy of there are certain drugs that open you and there's certain ones that don't, and I don't think that cocaine counts as one of those spiritual awakening aura opening.
Well, no, I'm not saying it in a positive way.
No, and I know, but I just don't feel as though I think
for something else to come in.
think the coke made him just absolutely crazy and not think straight. I don't know.
So it was probably a psychotic break.
I think I think he probably did.
Yeah, because him and his family, his dad was very abusive to all of them, and that was one of the big things, was that his dad and him really had it in for each other, and his dad was not a nice guy from not even just his own testimony, but other people that knew the family and stuff, that Ronnie's dad was a big jerk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was
mildly.
He was a mafia dude.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that whole idea, with the ebb and flow, I mean, that makes sense, coming back and forth like that. And it could just be a spread out cycle. We don't know the story of everyone who has lived there in the Amityville house and left, as they have so many times over the years.
That's the thing. It has changed hands way too many times for something to not.
Yeah.
Because, like, I get it if, like, say somebody bought it when the market was down or, whatever, and then they went under on it. Like, I could understand that happened maybe once or twice, but,
but continuously.
Yeah, like, that pings on my supernatural radar,
Right.
I guess.
Because I think the house was a colonial house, if I remember. It was built in the 1700s.
Yeah.
So, we don't really know a whole lot before the DeFeo family, what was even going on there beyond what they touch about in the book from the research and
right.
stuff like that, that it was purportedly on grounds where a guy, had done witchcraft and stuff like that. And there was a well in the basement, that was part of all the original structure and everything.
Right.
That just all sorts of stories. So, and I've never gone personally up to Long Island and researched it myself.
Yeah.
Other than just what I've read about it, through other books and stuff.
It was Jaws. Jaws haunts
It could be.
Amityville House.
That's how we, in public pools, that's how alligators and sharks get in, or those little filter systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's probably the well in the basement.
There's also land shark.
Yeah, it's very true. We have a couple of them in our house.
I just felt like dating myself with the old SNL. But I don't know. Like, I really wanted to get the chance to kind of cover, like, the exorcisms and stuff. There's a lot of truth behind a lot of those movies, even the really dumb ones.
Yeah.
I guess with the whole exorcism thing, like we said earlier, I just think it was cool that, like, the head exorcist of Rome loved the movie The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I thought that was, like, the coolest thing ever.
He actually saw it in a positive light.
Yeah.
To the public,
Yeah. And he was a huge, like, supporter of it and would, like, tell people about it and to see it. But I don't know. I just wanted to get a chance to talk about that and The Rite, because The Rite, if you haven't watched it, it's a great movie. The book is even better in my opinion. There's
it really is.
Moments in that book where I refuse to put it down, like, I know I would have to go to bed or I would have to do something, and I refuse to put it down.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in exorcisms, or just reading about a priest's experience going through that part of the priesthood, it's a great book.
Yes, I totally agree. So is there any other movies that you want to add? We're coming up to almost an hour here in just a couple minutes.
No, I don't think so. I feel like this podcast has been really boring. It makes me sad.
It makes me sad that we lost the last one.
I know, because I did a lot of work on that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll try it again here soon. We'll see what happens. We had to sort of make up for it, try to touch on it a little bit, and hopefully this one will come out better than the last one, because I really don't know. It's just like, I take it to mean, if I plug it into my computer and it doesn't show anything, and then I plug it into my phone, it doesn't show anything, and then I put it back into the recorder itself and the SD card shows that it's completely blank, there's something up.
Yeah.
So
maybe we'll try again one day.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will give you guys something to watch or something to do if you're looking for movies you haven't seen before.
Yes.
And it's fun knowing when things are actually based on true events.
And let us know what you think. Like, if you watch any of these movies, you haven't seen them before, or, give us your input. Or if you know of other stories, movies, and things that were based on, historical events, whether they were dramatized or it was made into a movie actually portraying those events, we would be very interested, because we are huge horror movie addicts.
I think we've seen most of them.
Yeah, I think we have to. But you never know. Something we may have seen, like with The Strangers, I had no idea until, you were talking about it. So, and it kind of sheds a different light on the movie when you see it that way. For me, anyway.
I agree.
So I guess that about wraps it up for us tonight. I hope we weren't too boring. I hope we gave you something to listen to for an hour, and you didn't want to poke your eardrums out afterwards. And we'll get back on schedule again here. It's been kind of crazy. We're in the process of setting up the Afterlife tours in St. Augustine, beginning of October. So in just a few short days, bookings already open for it. If you go on afterlifetours.net, you'll see you can choose between Savannah, Georgia, and St. Augustine, Florida. I will be doing the tours in St. Augustine. I know I've talked about this at the end of our other podcasts, but we are right at that point now where bookings live, websites live, all the info's there. We've got the brochures being distributed as we speak, and I am very excited about it because it is unlike any other ghost tour that is done in that city at all, being that everywhere I will take you on the walking tour is places that we've investigated, and I will also be showing you the evidence from investigations at those spots, as well as the history of it, and also dispel the local urban legends from the historical facts, because every place that we've investigated, we've also researched in the research library, the historical records and newspapers and books and you name it. So it's a no-frills, fact-based tour with actual evidence, and I don't know of any other group that does that down in St. Augustine at all. So I'm really excited about it. That's afterlifetours.net. Anything else you want to add?
No, follow us on Instagram, Westgate Paranormal, and then Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah.
Westgate Paranormal. And if you want to email us, it's westgateparanormal@gmail.com.
Yeah, if you have any pictures you want to show us, we'll give you credit on our Instagram if you have anything that you want us to share.
Most definitely.
I think that's about it.
I think so. So, all right. Well, thank you for tuning in again. We are getting amazing amount of listens. It makes us very happy. Thank you all so much for sharing our podcast. Please continue to share it far and wide. It all emanates and is hosted through Spreaker.com. Westgate Paranormal's our show, but distributed through all major listening devices and thingamajigs in this newfangled universe of iPods for everything. So thank you so much. And until next time, take care of yourself. We'll talk to you then.